Before we dive into this case, make sure you're subscribed, because the deeper we go, the darker it gets. And trust me, you don't want to face a story like this alone. The rain was coming down in sheets that night, the kind that blurs city lights and turns sidewalks into mirrors. Detective Marcus Hale pushed through it with the same determination he carried into every case, but this one already felt wrong. Dispatch had described it as a possible homicide in the Riverside district, one of the quieter neighborhoods in the city. Homicides didn't come from Riverside. Noise complaints, petty thefts, maybe, but not this. He ducked under the yellow tape and flashed his badge. The responding officer lifted a shaky hand in acknowledgement. That was Hale's first hint. Cops didn't shake like that unless what they'd seen was something that would follow them home. Inside the small townhouse, dim lights flickered across the walls. The living room was neat, almost staged, except for the broken lamp on the floor. A woman in her mid-30s lay motionless near the coffee table, fully clothed, no signs of a struggle beyond the shattered lamp. No blood. No wounds. Nothing obvious. It didn't make sense. Hale crouched beside her, studying her face. Her eyes were open, frozen in an expression that looked more confused than afraid. That detail sat heavy in his mind. Confusion meant she hadn't seen the attack coming. The victim's name was Laura Benson, 36, graphic designer, no criminal history, no known enemies. The kind of person neighbors describe as quiet but friendly. The kind people never imagine in a crime scene. Officer Ramirez approached Hale with a tablet of digital notes. "Detective, you need to see the upstairs hallway." Hale didn't respond. He simply stood, wiped rainwater from his brow, and headed toward the staircase. The wooden steps creaked under his weight. Something about the air up there felt colder, heavier. Then he saw it. A single message written on the hallway wall in what looked like charcoal or burnt wood. You shouldn't have read it. The handwriting was messy, frantic. Hale felt the hairs rise on the back of his neck. "What did she read?" he muttered. But Ramirez shook her head. "We haven't found anything yet." Hale scanned the hallway. No forced entry. No signs of a fight. Whoever had been there left quietly and quickly. In Laura's bedroom, drawers were pulled open, but not emptied. Clothing scattered, but in a strangely organized way, like someone searching for something specific, not stealing, not sabotaging. On the desk sat a laptop, still on, still logged in. A single document was open, untitled. Hale leaned in. It was a list of dates. No descriptions, no labels. Just dates spanning 10 years. Random at first glance, but patterns had voices, and Hale knew how to listen. The earliest date was from exactly a decade earlier, April 19, 2015. "What happened that day?" Hale asked quietly. Before he could think further, a voice from downstairs shouted, "Detective, we found something else." He jogged back down, ignoring the slippery steps. Ramirez stood by a kitchen cabinet that had been carefully removed from its hinges. She pointed inside. A small locked metal box sat tucked behind the plumbing. Hale retrieved it, running his thumb over the cool steel. It had no markings, no keyhole, just a combination dial. "What do you think is inside?" Ramirez asked. "If I had to guess," Hale said, "whatever that message upstairs was about." The medical examiner entered then, giving Hale a grim look. "Preliminary check suggests no trauma. Could be poison, could be something else." But her hand was clenched around this. She handed him a tiny torn piece of paper. The edges were burned, as if someone tried to destroy it and failed. On it, in small scratchy writing, "Check the notebook." Hale blinked. Notebook? What notebook? There wasn't one in the house. Not one that they'd found. Unless someone had taken it. Or someone was still looking for it. Hale turned the paper over. On the back was a number, a storage unit address. Ramirez exhaled. "Detective, that place is on the outskirts of town. Hardly anyone rents there anymore. And someone wanted this destroyed," Hale said, holding up the burnt scrap. "Which means whatever's in that notebook is the reason she's dead." A cold realization swept through him like a gust of wind through an open grave. The killer wasn't finished. And the notebook, wherever it was, held secrets someone would do anything to bury. Hale pocketed the metal box, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. But as he stepped outside, he noticed something taped to his windshield, drenched but legible. A second note. "Stop now, Hale." He froze. Someone had been watching the entire time. Someone close. Too close. Detective Marcus Hale held the wet note between his fingers as the storm hammered the windshield of his unmarked car. The message was short, but the weight behind it was crushing. "Stop now, Hale." That wasn't a threat sent to intimidate. It was a warning from someone who already knew his habits, his patterns, maybe even his weaknesses. Someone confident enough to stand near a live crime scene and leave a calling card without being seen. Hale slid into the driver's seat, turned on the engine, and forced his breathing to even out. The case had barely begun, and already it felt like it was spiraling into something bigger than a domestic crime. Laura Benson hadn't been the first target, that much he knew instinctively. She had found something, read something, or uncovered something that had been hidden for years. And whatever she discovered was now pulling Hale straight into the crosshairs. He drove through the rain-soaked streets toward the outskirts of the city. The storage unit address scribbled on the burnt paper belonged to one of those old, half-abandoned complexes from the late 90s, the kind where lights flickered, cameras rarely worked, and forgotten secrets collected dust. Perfect place to hide something. Perfect place for someone to make a person disappear without a trace. As Hale turned into the long driveway, his headlights swept across rows of rusted metal doors. The rain softened to a drizzle, leaving the air eerily quiet. A single lamp near the payment office buzzed, casting a pale yellow glow over the first row of units. He parked, stepped out, and scanned the area. No movement. No other cars. Only the faint hum of electricity and the distant rumble of thunder. Unit 48B. The number burned into his mind the moment he saw it on the scrap of paper. He approached it slowly, flashlight in hand, listening for anything breathing, footsteps, a door gently closing. Nothing. The lockbox on the handle was already smashed open. Hale stiffened. Someone else had been here recently. Maybe minutes earlier. He pushed the door up. It groaned like a dying animal, echoing across the lot. Inside, the unit was dark except for a single battery lantern set at the far end, illuminating a metal shelf. The lantern's glow flickered, throwing shadows across the concrete floor. On the shelf sat a row of boxes labeled only by year. 2015, 2016, 2017, and so on. But one box was missing. 2015. Hale's pulse quickened. The dates on Laura's laptop, the notebook, the year of the first entry. It wasn't a coincidence. He checked each empty spot carefully, studying the dust pattern. That box hadn't been gone long. As he reached for the 2016 box, a faint scuffing sound came from outside. Hale froze. Slowly, he thumbed the safety on his weapon and stepped toward the entrance. "Police," he shouted. "If someone's out there, show yourself." Silence. Then another sound, softer this time. Almost like someone brushing against metal. Hale stepped out of the unit, sweeping the beam of his flashlight across the rows. The cone of light caught something on the ground near the corner of the building. He moved closer. A shoe print. Fresh. Deep. The rain hadn't washed it away fully, which meant whoever left it couldn't have been gone more than 2 or 3 minutes. They had been watching him. Just like they watched Laura. His radio crackled suddenly, making him jump. "Detective Hale, you copy?" Officer Ramirez's voice came through, tense. Hale pressed the button. "Go ahead. You need to come back to the precinct. Now. There's been an incident." Hale closed his eyes briefly. "What kind of incident?" Ramirez hesitated. "The metal box you found at the victim's house, the one you took with you, someone tried to retrieve it from evidence. Broke into the storage room and targeted that box specifically. They didn't take anything else. And Hale, they left another note. Another note." This was escalating faster than he expected. "I'm on my way," he said, heading back to his vehicle. As he drove toward the station, his mind replayed the details. Someone was monitoring every move. Someone knew about the hidden metal box, the storage unit, the year 2015, and possibly even the pattern Laura had uncovered. But why go after the notebook? What could be so dangerous, so damning, that it had to be erased 10 years later? When Hale arrived, Ramirez was waiting for him in the lobby, pale and shaken. "This was taped to the evidence door," she said softly, handing him a folded sheet. Hale unfolded it. The year she died. "The truth is in the first entry. Stay away or you're next." He stared at the words, feeling the room tilt slightly. The first entry. 2015. Someone wanted that year buried. Someone was willing to destroy evidence, threaten police, and kill to keep it hidden. Hale slipped the note into his pocket and turned toward the hallway. Ramirez frowned. "Where are you going?" "To find out what happened in 2015. He didn't say the next part out loud, though the certainty chilled him to his core. Someone close to this case wasn't telling the truth. And in Chapter 3, Hale would discover just how close the danger really was. Detective Marcus Hale stared at the hallway leading to the cold case archive, his footsteps echoing off the tiled floor. The year 2015 repeated in his mind like a drumbeat he couldn't escape. Laura Benson's list of dates. The missing storage box. The threatening notes. Everything pointed backward 10 years to a case he barely remembered. A case that had been closed too quickly. And someone desperately wanted to keep it that way. The cold case room was dim, lit only by the overhead fluorescents humming like insects against glass. Dust had settled on the shelves, giving everything a grey, ghost-like layer. Hale pulled out the 2015 file binder, thick, heavy, and old enough that the edges had curled. He flipped it open. At first, nothing stood out. Robberies. Assaults. A missing person who never resurfaced. Then, halfway through the binder, something caught his eye. Case 15 to 427, the Avery Collins fire. A house fire. One fatality. A woman in her 20s. Ruled accidental. But as Hale skimmed the pages, he felt his chest tighten. Smoke damage inconsistent with accidental origins. Neighbors reporting shouting before the fire. And a note. Victim had a personal diary that could not be recovered from the site. A diary. A notebook. Hale turned another page and froze. Attached to the file was a photo of the lead investigating officer. Detective Reed Marlowe. Hale's old partner. His mentor. His friend. And the same man currently serving as Deputy Chief of Police. A chill sliced through him. Reed had been on duty the night Laura died. Reed had access to evidence. Reed knew where Hale was going before he got there. Reed had been around long enough to hide a case if he wanted to. Hale. The voice behind him made him stiffen. He turned slowly. Reed Marlowe stood in the doorway, the overhead light catching the silver strands in his hair. His eyes were tired, sad, and calculating. "You digging up old ghosts?" Reed asked quietly, stepping further into the room. "You shouldn't be down here alone." Hale closed the binder. "You knew Laura Benson." Reed didn't flinch, which told Hale more than a confession. "She came to me a week ago," Reed said. "Asking questions about a fire from 10 years ago. She had information. Things she shouldn't have had. And she wound up dead," Hale said. "Same night she found that notebook." Reed's jaw tightened. "Marcus, listen to me. There are things you don't understand, things that were complicated back then. That notebook," Hale said, stepping forward, "what was in it?" Reed sighed heavily. "The girl who died in the fire, Avery Collins, she was mixed up with people who wanted her silenced. She kept records. Names. Dates. Deals she heard. She wasn't supposed to keep any of it. When the fire happened, there wasn't enough evidence to prove it wasn't an accident. You closed it anyway," Hale said. "You closed a murder case." Reed looked down. "I didn't have a choice." A sharp ache tightened in Hale's throat. "Everyone has a choice." Reed stepped closer, his voice low. "I didn't kill Laura. But I knew she was in danger. I warned her to stay away. I told her there were people who would do anything to protect themselves. And the person warning me now?" Hale asked. "Is that them, or you?" Reed didn't answer. He reached into his coat. Hale's pulse spiked, he reached for his weapon. Reed pulled out a small, weathered notebook. The missing 2015 box. The missing evidence. The reason Laura died. The notebook. Reed held it out like it weighed 100 pounds. This is what they've been looking for, he whispered. This is what Avery died for. What Laura died for. If you read it, there's no going back. Hale snatched it from his hands. Who are they, Reed? Reed swallowed, eyes darting toward the dark hallway. Marcus, they're already here. A metallic clang struck the far end of the corridor. Hale spun toward the sound. Footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Coming toward them. Reed grabbed Hale's arm. You need to run. Take the notebook. End what I couldn't. Reed, come with me. But Reed shoved him back, eyes fierce with something between guilt and relief. Go, Marcus. The footsteps grew louder, dangerously close. Hale hesitated for half a second, then sprinted down the opposite stairwell, gripping the notebook so tightly his knuckles went white. He didn't look back. Didn't slow. He burst out the emergency exit into the cold night air, sirens from distant patrols slicing the silence. He stopped under a streetlight, panting, heart hammering, rain beginning to fall again. He opened the notebook to the first page. The first entry. And when he read the name written there, the name tied to payoffs, threats, and the fire from 2015, his blood ran cold. It was someone still serving in the city's leadership. Someone still in power. Someone who would kill again to stay protected. Hale closed the notebook slowly, the truth burning like acid in his throat. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. If you think this story was intense, the narration inside his mind whispered, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe, because the next case is already unfolding. The rain fell harder. And somewhere behind him, in the shadows of the precinct he once trusted, another door slammed shut. A warning. Or a promise. The case was far from over.